Hello and welcome to another Beer Ritz mixed case tasting video. This week we're talking about the Dandy BrewPunks of Fraerburgh. That's Brewdog. They have gained sort of fame and notoriety over the last couple of years. They're a relatively new brewery, but they're a brewery who are travelling at like 1,000 miles an hour and just trying to pull the whole kind of English craft brewing scene along with them. Or actually maybe they're not trying to take the brewing scene with them, maybe they're trying to cut off the bit of Scotland that they're on, float out into the North Sea and kind of establish an independent brewing state, because they've kind of become known for brewing really bold, characterful beers that to a certain extent stick two fingers up to the English brewing establishment. Whatever you think of them and whatever you think of any brewery, they should really only be judged on their beers. Now Brewdog are of course known for their more unusual beers. Tokyo at 18%, Tactical Nuclear Penguin at 40%. They've just launched a range of beers called Abstract. They're going to be beers that are brewed once and never brewed again. So Abstract ABO1 here is a vanilla pod infused quadruple, a Belgian style strong ale. So those are the kind of, that's the luxury, the specialist end of their output. But what it's easy to forget is actually they produce a core range of really great beers. And it's these four beers that I'm going to talk about today. The first one, Trashy Blonde. It's a really light, easy drinking blonde ale. Lovely kind of golden colour, you can see that there. And the aroma, there's a classic kind of cracker, biscuit, pale malt note going on in it. And then over the top of that there's a lot of kind of really fruity, tropical fruity hoppiness. And again, on the palate, the first thing you get, that lovely kind of crackerish biscuit malt, tropical fruit, and then it just finishes. You know, it's fairly short. It's a session beer. It's 4% and a bit alcohol, and it's not meant to be anything really profound, but it's got a really deep sort of fruitiness. The bitterness is long lasting, and it really makes you want to take another sip as soon as you're done. As soon as you're done drinking it. So that's Trashy Blonde. That's their sort of session ale, I guess you would call it. Now 77 is their, we're getting a little bit lively there, let's just release a bit of that pressure. 77 is their sort of their craft lager, if you like. And again, lovely pale gold, a little bit stronger than Trashy Blonde. And rather than the exuberant tropical fruit hoppiness in Trashy Blonde, what you get in 77 is a much kind of crisper, cleaner flavour set. Brewed in a slightly different way. Obviously it's a lager, it's been lagered. The cold conditioning kind of gives a crisper, sort of more biscuity set of flavours. The hopping in it also less exuberant, a little bit more restrained. It's got that kind of classical snappy, dry sort of Pilsner style hopping to it, and it works very well compared to kind of what you might call ordinary commercial lagers. It's a little bit of a step up. There's a little bit more flavour, there's a bit more depth, there's a bit more bitterness to it, but it's still very recognisable as a lager. And that's very nice too. Again, just below 5% alcohol. It's more of a session beer, clean, crisp. You know, would work really well with kind of, I guess, little, hors d'oeuvres or little tapas, that kind of thing. Little bits of seafood, little bits of meat, whatever. The beer we're going to move on to next, 5 AM Saint, is a really interesting beer. It's a little bit darker than you might expect from kind of the core range of sort of session beers. They style it as their iconoclastic amber ale. You can see it's slightly darker in colour. So what we've got darker malts involved here. I've spoken to Martin Dickey, the brewer at the brewery. I've exchanged emails with him, and he sort of talks about the malt bill in this as being the key to the beer. And there's a proportion of amber malt which gives it a kind of nutty smokiness. And you sort of get that on the nose, and the nose is quite complex. What you get, there are two things going on. You get the nutty smokiness of the malt, and then you get the real kind of tropical fruitiness on top of that. And it's unusual, it's quite complex. And in the mouth, the first thing you get, the sweetness, the malt sugar there, then as soon as you kind of swallow and breathe out, you get a big sort of waft of that nutty, smoky amber malt, and then you get a little more hop sweetness coming through on the palate. And it's a really interesting, complex beer, and I know it's one that people are kind of going nuts for at the moment, because it manages to pack a whole lot of flavour in there. And again, not massively strong, around 5% alcohol. But it's good. Complex, but drinkable. The nuttiness in it is sort of quite notable, really. It's a beer that I guess is maybe a stepping stone beer from something like Trashy Blonde onto something a little bit bigger and darker and heavier. It's got all those sort of familiar tropical fruit hop hooks in it that you can sort of hang on to and understand, but at the same time there's a big sort of complex malt base going on underneath it. Fantastic. I'm just going to give the glass a little rinse out there with our last beer. Because what we've got is their last kind of member of the core range, if you like, Punk IPA, and this is kind of the beer that I guess brought Brewdog a little bit of their fame in the first place. It was one of the first beers that they started brewing, and it's kind of a modern English IPA. We like to say it's English. They're a Scottish brewery. It's a modern British IPA then, but lovely kind of pale gold, and you get just that lovely kind of the fruitiness. You're starting to get a bit of citrus in there now, as well as the tropical fruit, and a faint sort of bit of spiciness as well. That's good. Again, back to the pale malt, the kind of biscuity base that everything else is built on. So you get the pale malt, the cracker flavours, then you get a layer of tropical fruit on top of that, and then after you swallow you get the bitterness building, and the bitterness in this is quite big. It's not overpowering, it's balanced. There's a sweetness in it, so that the bitterness is balanced with the sweetness. But again, a really fantastically drinkable beer, part of Brewdog's core range, and one that's kind of easy to overlook. Now it's 6% alcohol. It's got a bit more of a kick to it than the rest of them, but nevertheless, really, really drinkable, easy to understand, easy to enjoy, but at the same time, really kind of complex and satisfying. So if I was going to mix a case, I would go for 6 of each of these. How you want to mix it is up to you. These bottles are available individually on the Beer Ritz website. You might want to add a few of the specialities. I know that Hardcore IPA is available at the moment on mail order. That's the IPA that has just won its class at the World Beer Cup in the States. That's a kind of a much bigger, fuller-bodied version of Punk IPA, if you like. A lot more hop character, a lot more alcohol, a lot more malt. Up to 9% alcohol there. But that's a real, really enjoyable. If you want to kind of get a feel for what Imperial Double IPA is like, that would be a great place to start. And again, not terribly expensive, easily accessible in the UK, and why not? Okay, I'm going to go back to, well, I'm going to finish this. I'm just going to go back to the 5 AM Saint, because I know that this is a beer that the guys at Brewdog, James and Martin, are really, really proud of. And it's something that's doing great things for them at the moment, kind of not only in the UK but all around the world. There's a huge following for this in Scandinavia, bizarrely. So that's the one that I'm going to say cheers for that. I hope you enjoy the beers if you buy them, and we'll see you with another set of tasting videos in a little while. Cheers now.